Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, help of Christians, pray for us. Saint Rosalie, pray for us. Saint John Bosco, pray for us. In the Father, and the Son, and the Spirit.
Thank you, Father, and thank you all for coming back out. I must not have been that bad because you all showed up here. So thank you. And again, thank you for making the sacrifice. I know it's a busy time of the year, so I appreciate it. And thank you for turning up the heat on me, literally, outside. That was quite, when I left Connecticut yesterday, it was 60 degrees. So 94 is a little bit different for me. But thank you. No, thrilled to be back with all of you, and thank you for coming back out to continue this process, to be engaged. It's great to see such a number, all of the ministries. I love it. All the engagement is awesome, so thank you. So today, really, we want to do two things. So two things that we would like to address. First is to come back with a few of the answers, right? There were some questions that were raised. Nathan did a great job videoing. We had the opportunity for the Archdiocese to review, those videos, the questions, and above all, more than the questions, the passion and the vibrancy that comes from these two communities. And I think that was important. I think that came across, and we'll continue to communicate that to the Archdiocese. Right? I think that's really important. So thank you for that. And if there are more questions, we'll have the opportunity as well to have them to review and to address. That's the first part. I guess I don't want to assume that everyone came to the first meeting. Who here was at our first meeting maybe a month ago? All right, early on. Is anyone here that wasn't at our first meeting? All right, so there's a number. So essentially I'll recap briefly the process of what we're going through, the timeline, what the objectives are. I'll answer several of the questions that were addressed in the first meeting. And then really the bulk of the meeting is going to be dedicated to the proposal that the parish communities, right, the two communities, want to make to the Archdiocese, right? So at the end of the day, the main outcome of this process is to propose to the Archdiocese what we want to do as a parish community, right? So the parish community of Rosalie, the parish community of St. John Bosco, right? This isn't something that I'm making, right? We're in a lot of these, I'm doing many of these sessions. I'm doing 4 days on 6 or 7 parishes this weekend. And a lot of the questions have come up. When do you make this proposal? I'm not making any proposals, right? This is a proposal that you are putting together. Now, it's hard to make a proposal with a few hundred people, so you have key parish leaders that are working together with your pastor to make this proposal to the Archdiocese. It's not my proposal, it's your proposal. I'm here to help, to guide, to give feedback, to give insight. So it's your proposal that you're making to the Archdiocese, right? And then the Archdiocese, namely the Archbishop, will make a decision about all of the parishes in the Archdiocese in the fall, right? So that is the trajectory that he's going to take time, he's going to consult the governing bodies, he's going to consider it. He's going to review the proposals that we have made. He's going to hear feedback, right? I'm going to give him direct feedback from the communities, and then he will make a decision in the fall, right? And if he has any questions or follow-up, he'll come back with that. But our proposal will end by August 30th, the community's proposal, and then he's going to take some time over the fall to review, to discern, to ask any clarified questions. And he is committed to himself making the decision. So that's where we are in the process. So the bulk of the meeting, as I said, will be reviewing a proposal. Your key parish leaders are fantastic. I don't need to brag, but probably the best out of all of the churches that I've been dealing with. Don't tell any of the other churches. But they're fantastic, they're very dedicated, they're very thoughtful, they're thorough, and they are going to present. And, when they said, Brennan, can we present what we think the parish wants to propose to our Archdiocese? I was like, that's fantastic, because that's exactly how it should be, right? It's your proposal, it's your community, but you'll be able to put that forward. So your key parish leaders will come up after I walk through the timeline again. and they'll walk you through the proposal that they want to make on your behalf. They'll have an opportunity for you to feedback on it. Okay? So, Father, if you wouldn't mind just advancing, I can advance. I also want to grab my book for follow-up questions. I'm just going to advance to the timeline, and we'll just talk a little bit about that. And I can come up and do that. Sorry about my ticker. Advance here. The agenda, welcome, a recap, draft, and questions. I'm going to book. All right, so just a quick recap, and also for those who didn't attend the first meeting, we started this process when Father and the key parish leaders met with the Archbishop in person in January in New Orleans at the seminary, and there was an opening about why the diocese is doing this now. Right, there are some very practical reasons. Right, in particular the impact that COVID has had on the archdiocese, and probably even more, or I would say next, is the impact that the storms have had across the archdiocese, right? There's still tremendous amount of damage and repairs that needs to be done across the archdiocese. And then finally, just the overall impact that the general secularization, the lack of people kind of disaffiliating with religion in general, not just the Catholic Church. We're definitely feeling the effects of it, but really all religions are having. So this was an opportunity for him to take a step back. Also, it's no secret that the archdiocese is in a bankruptcy, right? And there are certain restrictions that the archdiocese is under, and certain things that they need to deal with and to confront, right? And we can look back and we can point fingers, and there's plenty of blame to go around. But at the end of the day, right, we're dealing with those consequences and those constraints. So this was an opportunity for us, the Archbishop, to hear feedback, right? To say, okay, here's the situation that we're in. What do the parish communities propose moving forward, right? And then answer any clarifying questions. So, we began this process with your key parish leaders to address okay, let's make sure we have the correct information about mass attendance, about sacramental trends, about the facilities, the repairs, etc. Let's make sure that the communities are aware of this information, this accurate information, answer any questions about that. And then we were able to come back with the key parish leaders to talk about, okay, moving forward, what do we want to do as the community of St. Rosalie, the community of St. John Bosco, the shared pastor? What do we want to propose to the Archbishop? And we have those proposals, and we want to come back and talk. There were three kind of main questions. There were quite a few questions, but I would say, a lot of it was venting frustration, which is completely understandable to the Archdiocese, and I addressed this both with the Parish Sustainability Committee and with the Archbishop. First, I told him how the first thing was how wonderful of a reception and just the vibrancy of these two communities, right? I can say in all of my dealings, there was nothing quite to this level, and I expressed that, right? Just the engagement, the desire to want to use this as a moment of impact and of change, and that was very well heard, very well received. I expressed the dedication and the commitment of all the parishioners here, right? There are parishioners that have been here for many years, who have poured their literal blood, sweat, and tears into these two communities, and at certain periods, they felt that they were treated unjustly by the Archdiocese, by different things that happened. So I expressed that, and they were able to see that on the video as well. There were three key questions that were raised, and the Archdiocese was able to take some time to just do some digging, right? Not everyone that are in those roles were necessarily involved in some of these things. I would say the first one had to do with the property, or the exchange of property from St. Rosalie to the infant Jesus, right, when that parish was erected and moved over. So legally or canonically, I will say, anytime a new parish is erected, any of the assets, right, so whether it's a church building or the property, that a canonical parish, right, so it's a separate entity from St. Rosalie, is erected, the property has to belong to that community, right? It's a canon law. Now, when that happened, when that property was transferred to St. Rosalie, the legal document, so canonically, right, it was assumed that that property belonged to that parish. But the legal document signing that property over that gave the legal ownership, right, in civil law to the community was not signed at that time. So when the community, when that parish community decided to sell a lot of land to the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Department, it was canonically theirs, right? So from church legal standpoint, it was their property to be able to do with what they will. But legally, they had to go back and amend or to fix the legal document, sign it over the properties. So that is the explanation of that property. I know that was a question that was raised, and we were able to do that investigation and to find out where that happened. Should that property have been signed over from the very beginning? Absolutely, right? Was that a mistake and a misstep and an oversight? Absolutely. But hopefully that gives you some understanding of where the differences between canonical law and civil, right? So we can, right, might be disappointed about that, but that is the answer that the Archdiocese gave. The second question was just the lack of speed and attention and communication and ultimately action when it comes to repairs, right? I refer to it as the blue tarps, right? I kept referring to it as blue tarps because that's what I heard when I was here. You know, we've had multiple versions of blue tarps on our buildings for several years, right? The answer from the Archdiocese, right? And there was a lot of frustration on their part in answering this question because they feel they have the same frustration. And the answer is that it's just slow. It's slow across the whole Archdiocese, right? So they are just not, and I can attest to this, right? I've been traveling across the Archdiocese to different parishes, and there are buildings with tarps on them, things that need to be repaired, and it's just slow. Part of it were a few of the missteps in the initial management team that was brought on, right? There are also some lawsuits involved in that initial team of contractors that were brought on. They had to bring on another team of contractors. Then there's just a slowdown from all of the supplies, right? Just the supply chain issues that everyone has felt. I think it's getting better, right? But it's definitely has just not been an easy and smooth process. And the Archdiocese, that is the answer that they have given. And there is great frustration on their part that things aren't moving faster than they have. So that was the second one. The third point was just related to equipment. So when the school of St. Rosalie was closed down, a lot of the equipment was taken out of the building. And this actually happened in several other schools that were closed down in parishes that I'm working with. And essentially that equipment was given per a grant. And that grant had that equipment needed to be used for school children. So legally, the Archdiocese had to remove that, right, and use it for another school or to sell it, etc. They said, right, the parish most certainly could have purchased that equipment if they wanted to keep it, but legally they needed to make sure that they respected the terms of the grant that they received that equipment, right? So it wasn't the Archdiocese coming in and trying to, they in no way intended it to feel like they were stripping assets from a school that had closed, but this did happen in several other schools that closed as well, and that is the legal ramifications involved that equipment was removed. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have about the process or anything else that you want to be raised with the Archdiocese. And after that, we'll hand it over to key parish leaders to talk about those issues.
If you have questions, please come up. You can use the mic.
Hi, it's Lisa from Florida. I'm thinking about from parish. And I don't know how much this
Oops, no sound.
It's not picking up.
Okay. Therese Florence in the Bosco Parish. And this is, I don't know how much you skipped into the whole thing, but last meeting you said that, religion in general is in decline. People are not participating as much anymore. And I was just always wondering why at the Archdiocese we changed our confirmation age from 8th grade to 11th grade. And I believe that's a big difference in our parishes because the kids, we was talking about the number of confirmations and stuff like that in each parish. And of course, when the kids move on to high school, they're not necessarily going to the schools with all their other the children that are at the same parish. So then they want to make their confirmations with them wherever they're going. So to me, that has complicated everything. It has caused our youth to move away from the church because they didn't get the blessings of that confirmation earlier. And if we want to say that it's because in 11th grade you have a better understanding and the ability to speak for yourself, then why can't children that want to confirm earlier, like some of the saints I know requested to confirm earlier, now Blessed Carlos Cruz as well. Why our children aren't allowed to make that decision?
Thank you. Excellent question. So I'm going to be perfectly honest. I have no idea why the Archdiocese moved the confirmation year. But what I will tell you, very providentially, the parish I was just at, there was a gentleman there who got up and shared a story about the Archdiocese changing the confirmation time. He actually worked for the Archdiocese in the religious ed department when this was taking place. And I don't know if this helps or not, but he was sharing that the Archbishop was very concerned to hear everyone's input. And I'm sure you have your reasons for why it should be earlier, right? Traditionally, it's been as young as 2nd grade, right? A lot of them do them in high school. My own archdiocese has just moved from 9th grade to 6th grade, so they're all over. But he did share that when the archdiocese made this change, he was in the office when this was taking place, that they tried to solicit as much feedback as possible from all of the directors of religious education, from the schools, from parishes, from pastors, etc. So, is there an opportunity for the Archdiocese to look at that again? Absolutely, right? I wrote it down. I'm going to make that suggestion. But it did sound like when they made the decision, it was a thorough process. They solicited as much feedback as possible, and for whatever reason, they decided to move to 11th grade, right? So I know there's probably pros and cons on both sides, but I will bring that feedback back to the Archdiocese. So thank you for sharing.
Anybody else with a question?
And I'll be here, so there might be other questions that surface after we present the proposal. So, I'm not going anywhere. So I'll be here. I can answer questions for as long as you need. So, Neil, do you want to come up and I'll change over the subject.
Can everybody hear me okay? I'll try to speak loud and with the microphone. I want to say two things before I really get into it. First thing is Brenner was not directly involved in any of the putting together of this presentation that you're about to see. Just the committee did that. It was just us. So our goal with this meeting is that we are accurately reflecting your desires, your interests, what you see for the future of both of our parishes, St. John Bosco and St. Rosalie. So that's our goal for this meeting. I want to thank the rest of the vibrancy committee, and they can come up and also join me if they want. But Derek, most likely you know, and Nathan, who's doing the filming up there, but also Edie and Evelyn and Wade, Aaron, and a few others that Kathy, yes. So thank you so very much. Okay, we go on to the next slide. So the $1 million question, the big question is, Are we going to recommend one parish or some combined parish? And the answer, I'll just say immediately, is no, or at least give us some time. That's going to be our response to the Archdiocese. But I know that's what everyone's thinking. And by the way, we are very receptive to feedback in this meeting. But let me just first go over what we, the Vibrancy Committee, took away as our major takeaways from the first meeting. So, first of all, like Brenner said, I was happily surprised, everyone was happily surprised how many of you came out for the first meeting, and also I am happily surprised how many of you are here for the second meeting, because I was afraid that our participation from the first meeting would just drop like a stone. And there's fewer people here, but not that many fewer, and it's a busy weekend, and there's a lot of other things going on, so thank you. And I think that alone is showing the Archdiocese that there are a lot of parishioners here with strong ties to both parishes, that you deeply care about the parishes, and that's going to go a long way. Like, that sends a signal through and through. And of the 17 other dioceses that are on the list, of the 17 other parishes that are on the list, I would say that our two are probably two of the strongest positioned for the future. Now, that's not a reason for us to get complacent, because, and I said this at St. John Bosco, I said, so we might be fine for the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years, next 4 years. That's not going to cut it 5 and 10 years from now. It's just not going to cut it the way we're going. And we need to rethink how we're thinking about our parish for the long term. And I don't have all the answers there, but I know that we are in a process of consolidation. And a smaller church is not necessarily a weaker church, but we need to think about what that means in terms of the West Bank and also for our individual parishes going forward. And I have some ideas there. My background, I'll give you some short background on myself, just so you know who you're talking to. So I grew up Presbyterian, Protestant. In college, I fell away from the church because I said, that's old stuff. You know, we have science now. We have technology. We're smart. We don't need the church anymore. And in the back of my mind, in my heart, it was like, oh, this is a perfect excuse for sin, for doing whatever you want. Oh, yeah. And it wasn't until much later in my life that God brought me to my knees and showed me how wrong I am. And I promise you that my generation, most of them falling away from the church now, they are going to reach a point in their life, like I did, where they can either choose the avenue of Cain and say, I hate the world, I hate God, I hate everything, or they can humble themselves and come back before the Lord. And we need to be ready to receive those people back into the church with open arms when they reach that point. And that's my hope for the future of our parish. Sorry, I know I took a tangent there, but I feel strongly about this. Okay, back to the slides, back to the important stuff. So, St. John Bosco, we have a good amount of savings. We're fine financially for some period of time. I think it's about 10 years. Father knows exactly how long. We're doing okay financially. Now, what we're taking in on a regular basis on both parishes is just barely keeping even, and actually not quite keeping even. So it's not sustainable for the long term. So financially, if you can contribute, we've had, 5, 8, 10% inflation over the last 5 years. If you can contribute 5% more, 10% more, 20% more, it matters. And really, we need that if you can contribute. But St. John Bosco, we do have a runway financially. St. Rosalie has the money in property. And so the key there is that we've got to sell the property. If we can't sell it, maybe lease it, but as much as we can, if we can sell the property within the next year or so, then we'll be in a much better position for the future for St. Rosalie. Now, Mass attendance is up since 2021, which is good. However, you would expect some of that with COVID, people coming back and being more involved post-COVID. And so I don't think that's all that special about our two parishes. I think in general, but it is a good trend. It's definitely not bad, so it's good. Okay. This second to last point, loss of trust. So that's something that I heard, and I think the rest of the Vibrancy Committee hears. Regardless of whether the Archdiocese believes that they're fully in the right, or regardless of whether St. Rosalie believes it's fully in the right, regardless of either of those, what I took away is that there's a fundamental loss of trust between St. Rosalie and the Archdiocese. And what our goal with the Vibrancy Committee is, what our goal, and with this, what we're going to present to the Archdiocese, our goal is to make it in the Archdiocese's own best interest, because they're ultimately going to do what's in their best interest. But if we can show them that what's in their best interest is also in our best interest, then they're going to do what we hope that they do. So the way is we make the clearest path that they can for the Archdiocese, and then they can follow the path, and we give them clear reasons for following the path. So, and in doing so, if they follow that path, then they rebuild the trust. Because it's like, yep, we took your recommendations, we're going to follow that. Great, love it. Let's rebuild the trust. And that's the last point. So, can we have some period of time, since we do have the savings, and since we do have the property that we can sell, we need some period of time to show that we can rebuild what they define as vibrancy. Can you go on the next slide? Thank you, Brent. Okay. So here's the important part. So I heard with the closing of the school and other things like blue tarps, I heard what I define as the arbitrary nature of how St. Rosalie has been treated. Less so for St. John Bosco, and honestly, I don't have the history, so I cannot judge. But what we hope is that the Archdiocese tells us clearly, okay, here's what constitutes vibrancy. St. John Bosco and St. Rosalie, if you had 10% growth in parishioners from 2021 to 2022, and then 5% growth from 2022 to 2023, and then 5% growth from 2023 to 2024. And if your finances grew the same way, you had 10% growth, finances, 5% the year after that, 5%. If they said, okay, here's how we're judging you. A, B, C, D, and E. And then we know exactly how we're judged. And then it's on us. And we could say to the Archdiocese, we agree to how we're going to be judged. We agree to looking at that on a yearly basis. And then it's on us whether or not we hit those judgments. I don't think there's anyone in this audience that would disagree that we don't need to grow the church. We all know we need to grow the church. So why not just say, we have this runway, give us a certain amount of time, and I recommend 3 years, because I think 2 years is not enough to establish a trend, but 3 years is a short amount of time to establish a trend, and both churches have the runway to do that. Give us a certain amount of time where we can show that we are growing and vibrant parishes. Can you go to the next slide? Okay. And and we're going to recommend to the diocese what we think are fair benchmarks. I think 10% that first year, and by first year I really mean 2021 to 2022, and then I got to go back. Maybe it's 2022 to 2023, and then 5% after that. Because if we're growing at 5%, and let's say demographics on the West Bank are holding steady, that's good. Like 5% growth for any major corporation is excellent. So that's a high, but I think we can hit that benchmark. And if you have thoughts on that, obviously we'll take questions and discuss after. Okay. Now, there's one other thing I want to make clear. This is very important, and we want to make this absolutely clear to the Archdiocese. So none of the 17 parishes on the list, none of them had a school. And so if they're going to compare us without schools to parishes that do have schools, it's not really fair. It's not fair, because they have this whole pipeline for catechumens, for baptism. We need those benchmarks to be for parishes without schools. And any parish without school, great, let's do it. But that's something that we're going to make crystal clear, because none of the 17 have schools. Okay. And that would give them clear transparency. We know how we're being judged. And then every year they can tell us, oh, you're not hitting this, you're not hitting that. And maybe it's something like, as long as we hit 4 out of the 5, whatever it is, over the 3 years, we're fine. If we don't have to be perfect. There has to be some forgiveness, but there still has to be a standard. Okay. And if we do, and so this way the Archdiocese wins either way, right? They know what's coming. The Archdiocese knows what's coming, and we know what's coming if we don't hit those benchmarks. But if we do hit those benchmarks, then by their own definition, they told us what constitutes vibrancy, and if we are hitting those benchmarks, then we're vibrant. then everybody wins, right? So, next slide. And simultaneously, and I think the Archdiocese wants this regardless, but this shows them that we are working in good faith. I think they want to know in good faith that we are actually trying to work together. That's what they care about. It's like, are we trying to be good fellow Catholics, fellow human beings for, with long-standing ties? Are we working together? And what that means to me, and I think to the rest of the group, is that we don't have redundant efforts that are competing with one another. We don't set up things that are against one another or let's say, undermining other efforts between the two. And we have ministries that, what's the word I'm looking for?
Compliment.
That complement each other, exactly. So we have our Adoration Chapel at St. John Bosco. We have our Youth Center at St. Rosalie. St. John Bosco Youth, let's go to St. Rosalie. St. Rosalie Parishioners, let's do Eucharistic adoration at St. John Bosco. We're already doing that, but I think we'll look for opportunities to increase that in the future. We already have other ministries like faith formation, teams and friends together. I was saying teams, Father, rather than teams, but I got it right in the slides. Okay, next slide. All right. So this is us trying to tell the Archdiocese that what we want is also in their own best interest. Because if they decide arbitrarily to shut down St. Rosalie, then they have to, or St. John Bosco for that matter, then they have to pick up the insurance bill on a yearly basis for all the buildings that St. Rosalie is already supporting, and that St. Rosalie is already in the process of working to mitigate by selling the buildings. So in effect, we are already working for the Archdiocese's best interest because we're trying to sell the property. And they have that opportunity to restore trust. And I know that there's a lot of parishioners. I can't say I agree with you, but I know there are a lot of parishioners that say, I was born in this church, I will die in this church, I will not attend any other church. I disagree with that sentiment, but I understand it. I understand loyalty. I really do. And we want to restore that trust, and we want to keep you. And I think the Archdiocese ultimately wants to do what's best for you and our faith as well. So, the 3-year period will give both St. John Bosco and St. Rosalie the chance to continue combining and collaborating on ministries where it makes sense, such that if we fail to restore ourselves to vibrancy, then option 2 becomes a more reasonable alternative. Last slide. Thank you. All right. This is important too. So we discussed for all of 2 minutes. We said, do we even put a third recommendation on the table that we would close one church? And we all unanimously said no. We don't feel like in good faith that we can say we would even float that as an option. So the second option, and this is what we're asking for the 3 years. The second option would be keep our 2 churches open. We have 2 worship sites. We have 1 combined parish. Now, I want to speak for Father for a moment, and I've gotten to know Father a lot better over the last 6 months. And I've known a lot of project managers, administrators. Father's quite a good administrator, actually. He's quite good at administration. And you just don't know how much he's juggling on a regular basis. He's got 2 churches. He's as Father George as well. I think of them as like, you've got the king and the priest. Always in the Old Testament, you've got the king and the priest. And Father George is like the spiritual. He's all in getting people more embedded in that closer relationship with God. And Father Mark is doing his darndest to keep the temple open. All right? He's doing everything he can. And I feel really optimistic with them at the helm, with our teams. I really do. And we are in good shape if you make that choice within your heart to believe. Because the people in this room are going to make or break our churches over the next 3 years. It's up to Him. It's up to the Holy Spirit. But it's up to however we receive and allow Him to work through us. That's what it's going to come down to. And I don't know His plan. I trust His plan, absolutely, but I don't know His plan. But I think it's up to us to become more vibrant. Okay. Yeah, that's basically it. I think we all recognize the historic nature of St. Rosalie. It's a beautiful building, beautiful church. I really love my church, becoming part of my family. When I married my wife and into her family, I felt right at home immediately, and I don't want anything to happen to that, to either one. But it's up to us. So I encourage you to get involved. You can do one thing. And that one thing might even just be prayer. It might just be prayer. If you can't pray, you feel like, oh, I can't do that, but maybe you can give 5% more financially. It'd be one thing. It might make a difference. It literally might. So, all right, that's all I have.
Okay, so what Neil just described was what the committee feels. Now we need to know how you feel about what we presented. So please, did we miss something? We have something in there that we should take out. We need your input, okay? Because it's not the 8 of us on this committee that are going to keep this church going, like Neil said. It's everyone sitting here, people that couldn't be here today, and people that may not even know about St. Rosalie or St. John Bosco today. But we need everybody in here to help us. So please, let us know what you think we should tell the Archdiocese to keep both parishes open. Everybody has an opinion. Come on up, please.
Do you ever try to fight with someone who doesn't want to fight back? Like, you ever try to get in an argument with your spouse and they just kind of say, yep, you're absolutely right. Yep, we're going to do that. That's great. That's a great idea. It's a great plan. So if we get in a fight with the Archdiocese, they're bigger than we are. I hate to tell it to you. Like, they're big. They can do whatever they want. They're babes. We're not. But if we say, we'll do it, but we make it in their own best interest to do it. Sorry, go ahead.
Wayne Allen, St. John Bosco, but I also attended St. Rosalie many years. There's a lot of barriers in my eyes. But if we're going to give the Archdiocese a 3-year period, okay, we suggesting that they give us 3 years. I think you need to sit down and you give them X amount of months, X amount of years to fix St. Rosalie's parish, fix the buildings, to be 100%. If we're going to commit it 3 years, I think they need to be committed and held to stand.
Jim Stoner, I'm Jim Stoner. I'm Parish Council here. I couldn't read all the small print from my book, but when you were mentioning numbers, were those just numbers, were they advance attendance numbers, or were they numbers that include all the sacraments? Because it seems to me that a full accounting of the sacraments is really crucial. One thing that's been so impressive to me about what our priests have done has been having the weekly adoration and confession, which I think is, and so to make sacraments more available to us. And so I wonder if we want numbers all the way. But unify numbers, if you want to look at numbers, I agree with you about the students and parents of the like change. So that's the first part. The second has to do with, it seems to be a challenge to the Archdiocese. Well, that concerns marriage and marriage policy, because I think that one of the great problems we're having related to secularization, we've spoken about before, has to do with the number of young people who are not getting married in the church. I mean, numbers not getting married, and then numbers not getting married in the church, even though they're Catholic. And I haven't seen leadership from the Archdiocese on this and their support for what we do, because I think it's important that we have more marriages in the parish
and in the Parishes, ministry. But that we have to make general support in the community for that. And they're not really saying yes. Now maybe I can send my friend with that also.
For number one, speak to. Honestly, I think we could use your help, Dr. Stoner, and anyone else for number one. And the reason so with the numbers, and that's where I feel underqualified. I don't really have a strong accounting background or anything like that, but my parents does. What was I going to say? Oh, I'm especially worried. We have to make sure we're not judged according to our numbers when we hire a school, because obviously that's going to show a downward trend. So I think we're going to reach out to people that we think are experts in numbers so that we get what we recommend to the diocese correct. Does anyone want to speak to the second question? I know we've had more into this recently. I don't know if you speak to that.
This morning at St. John Bosco, I did a validation. A couple that was last Sunday. This morning at St. John Bosco, I did a validation of a couple who are recently married. In June, beginning of June, we have another marriage coming up at St. John Bosco. I have several marriage preps both here at Rosalie and St. John Bosco. So the Lord is providing. These people are coming to get married in the church and have their weddings blessed. So that is good. Baptisms. We've been getting a number of people coming. We have a number of baptisms going. We have a baptism tomorrow at St. Rosalie after the 10:30 Mass. I think the Lord has been watching over us, and touching people's hearts. That people are coming for the sacraments. I do see that increase in these months. We're very blessed with that. We continue to pray. See, as we invite young people who are not married, we're just living together to think about commitment to getting married in the church. Those who have only been civilly married need to take the steps needed to get married in the church, have a sacramental marriage. If we all pull together, we can see this transformation coming about in our parishes. I indeed am very optimistic these past months. What's been happening sacramentally. And being a plug now, it's not too early to start servicing candidates for the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults, formerly the RCIA. You say, well, it begins in the fall. Now is the time we can start looking and inviting people. If we invite people, the worst they can say is no. The best they can say is yes. We have people this year who accepted the invitation and said yes. And then Wade told me the story about asking a fellow to go to a retreat. He asked the fellow, and the first time the fellow said no. Okay? And then a little while later, Wade went back to him and said, why don't you come on the retreat? Okay, come to the first talk. Okay? If you like it, participate in the rest of the retreat. If you don't, just enjoy the beauty of the retreat center and quiet and walk around and enjoy yourself with no pressures. The fellow came, he sat through the first talk, he sat through all the rest of them. Now he's deeply involved in the movement, the retreat movement. Okay? An invitation, follow-up invitation. RCIA, well, I'm afraid of going. I'll go with you. I'll be your companion there through the journey. Thank you.
Hi, Rosalie with St. John Bosco. I know St. Rosalie always has prayer. But I was thinking if we had more fundraisers, like help them, things like that, that would bring in money, possibly more people, but also have things that I know Father was saying he'd like to have more young people at the church. well, that's something that's dear to them. I mean, when you hear church, you know, kids are like, especially teenagers, they want to use their, the church to, well, what is it for, you know, when they have to dance, maybe not necessarily one of these churches. Another place where you have to get people and show them, and this is what, you know, different, what maybe a really nice somewhere or something. Just make it geared to young people. This is some young people, and see what they like.
Thank you, I agree completely. So we'll give it to Bonnie, but Bonnie's the expert on new kid activities. And I think if we're going to survive over the next 5 to 10 years, we need to do things that are different than the other West Bank churches. We need to differentiate ourselves from other West Bank churches. And Bonnie's on our parish council at St. John Bosco, but she brought up a few ideas. And the light bulb, I was like, yeah. And so those that say like, oh, you can't do it, it's like, I'm not so sure. All we got to do is grow 5 or 10%. Right? We don't need to revolutionize the West Bank overnight. You don't need to, it just takes a few steps. So go ahead.
My name is Bonnie Galnish, and my husband and I are at John Bosco Parish. Some of you are familiar. You're like, hey, I used to be there. We were Immaculate Conception. We've been in St. John Bosco Parish for 30 years, and we just never chose to go to church there because my family ties were Immaculate Conception, and that's where we were rooted. And times changed. We decided to start looking elsewhere, and we've now called St. John Bosco our home. And we really like the 8 p.m. Sunday Eve Mass. We call it the Young and Young at Heart Mass, because obviously we're not youth. But that's what keeps us there. And that's what's going to keep our parishes growing. We need to not disregard our youth. I don't care if they're babies. They're significant and they're important. So yes, after the last vibrancy committee meeting, we had a youth activity at St. John Bosco, and for a one-time, maybe 1 month notice kind of thing, we had a really good turnout, participation-wise, from both parishioners to support it and families who came out. And we hope to grow that. We also have other ideas we're working on, but we need to focus on our youth. What brought me up here initially was just the wedding discussion. I'm a professional photographer. While weddings are not my thing to shoot, I shoot more than I care to admit. And a trend I see is with our younger couples, they either aren't getting married in a Catholic church or any church because it's expensive, and they're going to an all-inclusive venue that has picture-perfect settings to do their weddings in. And in that case, we really need to focus on them coming and having their marriage blessed, whether it be annual blessing that's all the legal requirements or whatever. You need to focus on how giving them to have their marriage blessed. But the other thing is, stay with me just a second, when the Archdiocese took confirmation out of the schools at the same time they raised the age, they took it out of the schools so the kids had made confirmation in their home parishes. Well, these brides and grooms that are getting married in Catholic Church, a high percentage of them are not getting married in their home parish. They're going to cathedrals and big fancy churches, again, picturesque settings, and if you allow, I hate using the word allow, but if you allow couples to go outside of their parishes to get married, then you're taking it from their home, or you're taking that count. I feel like everything's about numbers right now. You're taking that count from their home parish, even though the next weekend they're going to be sitting in St. John Bosco's pews, St. Rosalie's pews, or wherever it is pews. This is not just a St. John Bosco and a St. Rosalie thing. I have heard a lot of people say St. Rosalie is a beautiful church. And in that aspect, maybe we need to start being our own wrong and promoting, promoting ourselves that way. I've also had a lot of people come up to me and say, I heard they're closing St. John Bosco and St. Rosalie. And I said, no, they're not. We are working on being more vibrant. We would love for you to come join us for Mass, but no, they're not looking to close us. They're looking to challenge us to do something to become more vibrant so that we're more active within the parishes. So, I think I covered like 3 different things when I was coming up there, just basically for the wedding aspect. That's one of the reasons why marriage numbers are down in the church. Because expense and the photographic background. As silly as that may seem to do, it's a reality I see in my application all the time.
One thing about fundraising, that has to be on our radar, because until we sell the buildings here, we still have insurance costs. So we have to pay insurance on these buildings until they're sold or until we can lease them and pass that cost on. So think about fundraisers that we can do, because again, we've known for about a year and a half now that St. Rosalie School was closing down. We knew in January of 2022 that it would not be open for the 22-23 school year. So people have known for a year and a half that these buildings are available. We've had some interest, but they've always backed down. But we still have the bills to pay for the insurance. So please think about fundraising.
So, Abraham here, right? Have you seen it? Has the church seen the first check one before they were passed?
Here.
I'm sorry, $80,000 a year. I'm just curious if this church has seen a check one off of that, make any repairs.
To make the repairs, I don't believe so, but what they're saying is because they're self-insured, there are other parishes that have greater needs than us. They are replacing the blue tarps, which is not a good, that's not a good thing. I mean, the good thing would be to repair what's broken. We are working with the Archdiocese, and that is high on our priorities, because, one of the things that we need to do that we've talked about already, we're going to extend the effort to grow. You need to extend the effort to help us. So that is very high on the list.
We'll include that in our plan. So we'll say, you give us the 3 years, and you give us repairs.
Maybe the Archdiocese ought to get out the insurance thing. After go to a grant insurance company, stick to clergy.
Now, speaking of the Archdiocese, okay, Rudder mentioned one of the first things that he talked about today was this is a nationwide trend of attendance quality. My question is, if it is nationwide, why don't we have the national church? Why don't we have our Archdiocese that is helping? So a couple of years ago, they had Come Home for Christmas. Remember those commercials on TV? And they said, I believe that was the 21, the Christmas of 2021 that they were doing that for. And they did see a spike in attendance. So we're going to say, we're going to do everything we can to help grow it. But we need your help also. We don't have the funds to go put on TV commercials. We don't have funds to do a big campaign, even a mailing campaign or whatever kind of campaign. We need the Archdiocese help also, and not just the Archdiocese, probably the national church and maybe even the international church, to try to stem this tide of the decline and get it to start growing. So I think that's something that we should include in the presentation also. We're going to do everything we can, but we need you to help us. And help would be whatever you can do to help us get people back in this.
Can you mute everyone?
My name is Iris Eisman. I was born and raised in St. Rosalie Parish. It's home to me. We're talking about fundraisers. St. Rosalie is in the process right now of conducting fundraisers. I handed out pamphlets for you just a while ago about a dance we're having at the end of June. Right to see it all come out. Also, about 3 years ago, I lost my husband. He was very active in the church. And I told Audra, and for a while I was in limbo. I didn't know what direction I was going to and where the Lord was going to take me. And I told Audra, I said, the Lord is telling me I need to do something, and I don't know what it is. And behold, he stood on the altar one Sunday, and he said, he needed help. He said, you're never too old to do something. And boy, was he right. I'm in the midst of all these fundraisers right now. And none of you sitting here is too old to do something. And I don't care if it's to come here and put a chair there in this hall, but get up and do something. Amen.
Hello, Chad Sherman, St. John Bosco. I just wanted to offer a little bit of advice, and that would be, along with what we are going to do, be very specific in how we're going to do it. I saw the list of the activities that we have, short list. One thing I would like to put in is the size of the Woodbury community. 5% of 14,000 is about 600 people. So what we need to do is have evangelization specifically to that demographic, that location, because the neighborhood is important.
We have a much longer thank you, Edie, because Edie is tracking everything. We have a full list of activities. It'll be in the whole report, but I agree with you, Chad, that there's opportunities.
Wayne Martinez with St. Rosalie Parish, nice to Columbus here. As far as fundraising goes, that's time to speak. Our council, every late season, does a fish fry here. And 4 years ago, we voted as a council to give to our church 25% of our net income at the end of the 6 weeks that we do the fish fries. So 2021, if I'm not mistaken, we gave $10,000 from our property. Last year, I think we gave another $10,000, and I'm not sure what the amount is this year, but this year was our best year ever with sales. So I'm assuming it'll be at least $10,000 or maybe more this year. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Yeah, all right. And don't forget, continue to think on what we need to put in this presentation or what we need to take out. So this is coming from us, not the committee.
Good afternoon. My name is Pedro from John Bosco, but I'm a foreigner. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I moved forward here back in 1981. Not proud of being out of my church for 40 years. When I got back into the church, I met Father Sid, and I put him in a predicament. Okay? The only reason I came back was because I was having a mental issue. I'm trying to do good things. I got involved into the wrong things. I started hearing voices, but it was not the voice of God. The good portion about that is that because I was listening to the bad one, I understood that God was alive. And now I come to church. Well, let me go back. The reason I went out of my church, and actually I was raised on a Catholic school, Parishes. The reason I got out was because we were playing in the church yard. We were playing hide and seek. And unfortunately, one of the priests kicked me because we were in the wrong place. That drove me away from church. Because how is it possible that we're not doing really anything bad, and a priest who should be merciful, he was not merciful with me at all. Just keep me on my side. Let me mention that drove me away, because how this is possible that a priest would do that. He was somebody that should have been a Christ for me, and he was not. I was away from the church for 40 years. It took me 40 years to listen to the bad one and understand that I need to come back. The thing I understood from that when I got back is I didn't come back for any priest, for any bishop. I came back basically to talk to the Lord, to listen to him. And whenever I go to church nowadays, and whenever I have my communion, and whenever I go to confession, I always remember that I'm here in that church because of it, and not because what any father or any bishop or anybody else tells me. I go there because I want to share my life with the Lord. And it's very difficult coming back. Yes, it is. Because I'm scared still. I believe that I'm in good shape. I believe I'm going through the right road. But there is a Holy Spirit that gives me some questions, put some questions to me. And I'm scared of following the right thing to do. I want you to think about that personally. Okay? Now, the second issue I would like to talk about at this point in time is one topic that has kind of mentioned lately in here. Is about the children. I used to work at one point in time for Jefferson Parish school system, and I heard somewhere in one of the books that one of the problems that was going on with Germany was that because they have been eliminating kids, youth, they have been getting in trouble financially. Because, and my point of view from that is that they have not been allowing kids to be born. Okay? And they're not really caring about kids. And I can understand that we have very good plans trying to make us stable. But I can guarantee you that if we don't take care of growing our kids within this Catholic Church, we will always be in trouble. Because our future is not us. I'm 74 years old, and we're to the point that pretty soon we'll be gone. Somebody has to take my spot. And it's not going to be my wife. She's 1 year younger than I am. We're still young, by the way. But we need new blood in our church. And that new blood is coming from kids. And we have to find out ways to get them back in here. Whichever way. A third point is that even though I was in a Catholic school, nobody ever showed me the importance of prayer. And prayer is not just going to church and recite some things that we know by heart. When I got in trouble, I got into a ministry that showed me about praying. And nowadays, every morning I spend 1-2 hours in the morning trying to talk to the Lord. Most of the time, I say, you're not listening. But it's untrue. Because little by little, He's illuminating me to have the strength to step up here and to say that God is alive. He's opening my heart. And it's very difficult when I'm fighting Him. And the only way I can do it is if He speaks to me. I remember a student once told me, Mr. Guzman, how I'm gonna listen to the Lord when I don't see Him, He doesn't speak to me, I don't know anything. When she told me that, the thing I tried to do was basically go back to the Bible and find out a way where it would say, here it is. See, this is how you hear Him. No. It's by speaking to Him early in the morning. Get out of your bed and pray. I found out that, and it's very difficult to follow up on that. But once you start doing it, it will help. And believe me, those who believe that are good citizens as a Christian, let me tell you, the more you get into knowing Him, the harder it gets. Because we started in Galilee, and we're going to Calvary. We cannot avoid that. That's our road. So whoever thinks that it's going to be easier, sorry to hear that, because I'm finding out that my road is getting more difficult. And the only thing I can do is pray, keep my faith, hope, and believe in the love of God. Amen.
We'll be in touch with Pedro on our evangelization committee.
I'm going to say something really quick. It'll only take 2 minutes. I want to echo what Pedro just said. It doesn't get any easier, but it was never meant to be easy. That's not why we're here. It's not actually why we're here. And we think our immediate thinking is we got to go out and we got to get people. But my thinking, as I'm listening to Pedro, I think it's in Matthew, where the disciples say to Christ, they say, Lord, increase our faith. Increase our faith. If you pray anything, pray that. And I'll tell you what has helped increase my faith. And I want you to show up. We have this whole group there Wednesday night. I'm promising you, if you go to 4 of these meetings in a row, your faith will increase. It'll grow. I promise you. It's the Come Lord Jesus group, started by a Catholic priest in Lafayette. Lafayette is a thriving Catholic city. And it's because of small faith groups where people can share exactly what Pedro just shared with all of us, which is remarkable, and I'm enriched by hearing it. And if you actually want your faith to increase, it is in those small groups, let me tell you, because then you hear it, and you know it, and it's real. So, we're starting a new group. It starts with the Gospels. You could know almost nothing about the Bible, and you'd be welcome, and you'd love it. And you could just listen to start, and you'd love it. Because if you like what Pedro just shared, I'm telling you that's so 6:30 on Wednesdays. And if your faith is increased in your own life, the people will come back, because the people will see that. The people will know. You will be a light unto the world. That's it.
All right, just to bookend what Pedro and Neil were saying, I'd like to read a little something from Sirach to you. And it says, and this is what you keep in mind about it not getting easier when you take on serving the Lord. My child, if you aspire to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for an ordeal. Be sincere of heart, be steadfast, and do not be alarmed when disaster comes. Cling to him and do not leave him, so that you may be honored at the end of your days. Whatever happens to you, accept it. And in the uncertainties of your humble state, be patient. That's real instructions. You're to strive for this. Since gold is tested in the fire, and the chosen in the furnace of humiliation, trust him and he will uphold you. Follow a straight path and hope in him. You who fear the Lord, wait for his mercy. Do not turn aside, for fear you fall. You who fear the Lord, trust him, and you will not be robbed of your reward. You who fear the Lord, hope for those good gifts of his, everlasting joy and mercy.
I just wanted to mention that they speak of the criminal abuses groups in St. John Bosco, but we've been meeting for over 6 years in St. John's. We have at least 3 groups meeting. I know we meet every Wednesday night. I have the time with the other groups in my phone, but I didn't bring it up with it. But I just wanted to make it known that we've been having this for 6 years. So we have groups in St. Rosalie that we have more people to come to.
Thank you. I want to thank Neil, all of the Keep Parish leaders, but a round of applause for Neil. I'm going to offer him a job. I think Neil needs to come and do this other part. Very inspiring, very well done. You have a great gift. Also, Father Mark, you have a wonderful pastor. If there's anyone that would say, you know what, get rid of all of these buildings, let's follow him. Father Mark, I don't think he became a priest to manage buildings and finances, and he reached over and said 18 buildings between all the campuses he has. A priest, a religious, much less a Salesian, this is the last thing he signed up for. But every morning he wakes up, he picks up his cross, and he follows where Jesus is leading him. So a round of applause for Father and for all of his friends. Thank you. And thank you all, for all of you, right, for being part of this, for sticking with us. It's not easy. There's nothing good. Hopefully I shared with you in our last session, any type of church mergers, closures, anything. It's never good. It's never a good thing. Some people would say, 2 + 2 will equal 6. Not church closures or mergers. There are people who walk to church who will no longer be able to go to another church, and so thank you. Thank you for being part of this. And you have great representatives. But my commitment to you is to represent your enthusiasm, your desire, your passion for your parishes to the Archbishop, to the Sustainability Committee, and I'll be praying for you as we submit this. The final needs to be submitted by August 30th. And then, as I mentioned, the Archbishop will make his decisions. I expect it will take, at a minimum, a few months. It's very complicated. There are many moving parts in this process, and I think that the Archbishop is going to be very thoughtful and prayerful about this. So, thank you. Father, would you like to close us out here? And I'll be around if anyone has any follow-up questions.
If you haven't seen any of the ministries on that side, please stop by, sign up. Also, if you haven't signed in, if you can't find your name on a sign-in sheet, sign one of the sheets. It doesn't matter which one. We need to make sure that we count everyone with the students.
And since we're talking about signing in, I'm still going to mention about those green registration cards. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth. They can get people to fill them up. It's a renewed census. It's been going on for 3 years now, and there are so many people who have still not responded, and you still see them in church. It's a job to try to track them down and, here, please fill this out and get it back to me. Okay, registrations, current registrations are important. I have stacks of the Rosalie, 5-6 stages of old registration cards going back. We need to update as much as we can. Again, we have that group that was going around looking at the property. Let's pray that they continue to see beauty in the property. They want to buy and lease the property for their purposes. That will be good. And then also, the ministry tables are still there. Please check out the different ministries there. There's always something that you can do, no matter how old, how young, or how ugly. Okay, there's something that everybody can do. We all work together. Okay, great things happen. Now let us pray in thanksgiving to God for this beautiful session, for the sacrifices of those who have come here today, and for the commitment that you're making to St. Rosalie and to St. John Bosco churches. They be the most vibrant parishes on the entire West Bank, even though we don't have parish schools. And let us pray in the words that Jesus gave us as the model for all prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Go in peace.
Thanks be to God. Thank you all for coming.